Welcome to Americana Archives. Today's headline is Sport with the Shovel Cat. The subheadline says, a denizen of the Mississippi, which they spear but rarely eat. It says, if you were fishing for crappies in any of the creeks out of Missouri that flow into the Mississippi, or in the estuaries or bayous, or whatever you may call them that are bulged out of that river every few miles, said a Missourian, you will wish you had gone out to fish for shovel cat. And if you are fishing for shovel cat, you will wish you had gone out after crappies. The shovel cat is about as strange a fish as swims, and will steal the crappie fisherman's bait almost as fast as the hook is thrown in if the fisherman seeks sport with that gamey little bass around where the shovel cat has chosen to forage for the time. But it won't let itself be hooked in doing it. On the other hand, if the fisherman is fishing for shovel cat, he will more than likely have to sit a whole afternoon in a Missouri sun without getting a single bite from one of those eccentric fish. But if you should happen to find a shovel cat, say an average one of 25 or 30 pounds, in the humor to tackle your bait and give you a bout, you will find a fight on your hands that will pay you well for the waiting. There are fish more favored in respect to pulchrotide than the shovel cat, but he isn't such a bad-looking fellow if you consider him broadside on. He is a graceful cut, and his long nose shows only a slender edgewise line, like the lance of a swordfish. With his sharply forked tail and large business-like fins, he is the rakish cut of a rollicking piscatorial freebooter. But when you catch him front on and full-face view, he certainly looms up as a creature to make you wonder what nature could have had in mind when she turned him out of her shop. Humpbacked, flat-headed, leering-eyed, and a nose like a dredging shovel. But he's a catfish all right, and you don't need to be told why he's called shovel cat. The first time you go out after crappies in any of those Missouri waters where the shovel cat loves to disport himself, the chances are that you will have the surprise of your life. 6 feet is not an uncommon length for this catfish to come to, and then he will weigh 50 pounds at least. A 10-pounder is an everyday affair. Having had your first sight of a big, hungry-looking fish like that, you would naturally think that scarcely anything else that swims in the waters where he lives would be any too big or fierce a prey for him. But you would be all wrong as to that. The big shovel cat preys on nothing bigger or fiercer than the animalculae and creeping things that have their homes in the soft mud of the creek, bayou, and river bottoms. And it's in making his attack on these that you will be apt to meet with the surprise of your life the first time you go out crappie fishing out in Missouri. You will be fishing from your boat in some shallow in the creek, intent on your line, when suddenly you will see the big form of a shovel cat shoot up out of the water so high in the air that he can turn almost a somersault and then plunge back again, head first, cutting the water with his shovel like a breakwater on a steamboat, and disappear beneath the surface. It may be that other shovel cats will in turn make similar leaps out of the water while you are wondering at the first. To the tyro, these tremendous exhibitions of agility on the part of the shovel cat are so startling that I have known more than one to pull up and paddle ashore in a hurry, fearing that the uncanny-looking catfish were rounding them up for attack. But all the shovel cats are doing is working for their dinner. They must get at the feed that is buried in the mud, and it's necessary for them to get a deep furrow in the mud to turn the food up. So they take a header to give them the impetus for driving their shovel into the mud. The dive drives the shovels far into the mud, and the catfish instantly plows a long furrow, and the food he is after is washed out of the mud by the process. So the shovel cat is an interesting critter, even if he isn't a sure provider of sport to the angler. But there is a way to go after him that gives him a chance to give some sport of a lively sort. This is to tackle him with a spear. Take a day when the sky is overcast. The shovel cat's spears go out in a boat, almost always a dugout. And I might say here that if you are thinking of going out after shovel cat in a Missouri dugout, don't go. That is unless you are aware of the Missouri dugout or don't care for an upset and maybe a swim. It's well for two to go in a boat. The spear is usually a rude affair, a wrought iron harpoon set by a socket on a hickory staff so it will be pulled off when the fish is struck, remaining in the control of the harpooner by means of 100 feet or so of heavy line, fastened to a ring in the head of the spear. It's considered wise by most shovel cat spears to have a float or buoy of cottonwood or some light wood to which the hand end of the line may be secured. For often, when a very big cat is struck, he makes it so lively for the man with the line that he must go overboard or else let the big fish walk off with line, spear, and all. With a buoy or float fast to the line, it can be tossed out on the water to worry the fish and keep him from escaping. One man paddling the boat, and the other one standing in the bow with the spear. They seek places in the creek where the shovel cat is likely to be feeding. His presence always to be indicated by his leaps out of the water for his dives into the mud. Guided to a spot by the leaping of a cat, the boat is quickly paddled thither, and peering down into the water, the harpooner gives the thrust that impales the shoveling victim. In an instant, the water is thrashed into a foam of yellow mud by the fish, and if he is big enough to do it, he dashes away down the creek or bayou toward the deeper water of the river, towing the boat along with apparent ease. Then the manipulator, both for the line and the dugout, must be alert and experienced in the sport, otherwise the fish may be able to get the line or upset the boat. If the boat is upset, however, it does not necessarily defeat the efforts of the fishermen to capture the fish, for even if they have to swim, they can follow the trail and win in time. Some shovel cat spears regard the necessity of such a finish as adding zest and enjoyment to the struggle, and affect disappointment if there is a tamer ending. Sport with the shovel cat is about all the average white person in Missouri cares to recognize in that interesting fish, its flesh being coarse, with a flavor said to be given to it by the black muddy bottoms from which it gets its food. It is said there are black cooks, though, who can bring out of that combination a dish worthy of the consideration of the most exacting palate. The way they do it is to dig a hole in the ground and line it with flat stones. Into this primitive oven, they pack tightly slices of shovel cat wrapped in wet corn leaves or husks, with an abundance of sweet potatoes. Over the oven, they place a flat stone that covers its mouth closely. On top of that stone, they light a fire which they do not permit to falter or to become too lively. The fish and potatoes are left to bake slowly for at least an hour, 2 hours being allowed sometimes. When the steaming mass is taken from the superheated pit, it is alleged that the strong muddy flavor of the fish has been dissipated, and a welding of the composition of the sweet potatoes with the better qualities of the shovel cat flesh produced, which affords good eating. This story came from the great state of New York, being reported in the Sun of October 8th, 1911. Thank you for joining us today. If you want to continue to uncover all of America's lost and forgotten history, then remember before you leave to hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and remember to like and comment below. And we will see you next time on Americana Archives.